You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Gene. Johnson.
From the AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies.
This is AfterBuzz TV's House of Cards After Show.
We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show.
It's AfterBuzz TV's House of Cards After Show.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, After Buzzers, and welcome to Netflix original series House of Cards Season 2, Episode 10. Episode entitled Chapter 23. I'm your host, Thaddeus Massey, and joining me today is...
Hey everyone, I'm Sophia Stanley.
Hey guys, it's Emma Kay.
Sophia Stanley and Emma Kay joining me for another great after show for this brilliantly written series. Just starting off, we had Jodie Foster last episode. She directed last episode. And this episode was directed by none other than Robin Wright, who plays Claire. And I'm not sure if you guys knew that or not, but this lady is quite talented in front of and behind the camera. As you can see, if you guys didn't know that, you guys might want to give her some shout outs on Twitter or Instagram or wherever you can find her social media, because she didn't miss a beat. In fact, she did a really good job. But jumping into the storyline, we start off with Frank going into a meeting with the presidential staff, and they're having a meeting. I don't want to say they're on Skype because they're not on Skype. I'm sure they're on something much more sophisticated than that, since it's the government. But they're having talks with the Japanese prime minister.
It's called like SatNav or from NCIS. Sorry.
Yeah, something. I'm not sure what exactly, but they were on a call with him, basically a FaceTime call with the Japanese prime minister, and I guess that the Chinese have released some military like destroyers and whatnot into the region of the ocean that they're in. That's the Pacific, I believe, right? Yes, yeah. I believe that is the Pacific. Japan's in the Pacific Ocean.
No. You were having a moment because you were trying to figure out what that sea is in between.
Yeah,
that's why you were pausing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's a difference between it's the Pacific Ocean, but it's like, and I do not know my geography, so I don't know what that sea is in between and the Taiwan and Japan.
And the Japanese have just released 2 destroyers and a cruiser, I believe. So. Like Frank said, you can't blame them for upping the ante. I mean, they have to. It's all about posturing and position before somebody decides to push a button. But even though it's probably more than likely not going to go to war, there's all this covert stuff going on.
But can I just pause you for a second?
You can go ahead, pause me.
The funny thing is, even though obviously all of these episodes have been available since Valentine's Day, just think about what's going on in the world right now.
Weird. I didn't want to talk about that.
No, but you have to. Oh, well, let me read this. I have to. So the fact of the matter is, when you're watching, right, you think to yourself, oh, it's just kind of like war games for TV, right? And you're not thinking there's a reality that one country encroaching upon another country's land could then potentially annex them.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? But then look at what's going on in current events, and you think to yourself, it puts a different level of realism in the storyline, as well as now you understand the stress level that the president is going through, as well as arguably not just the stress that Frank is going through, but think about it. Frank is able to have this quote-unquote diabolical plan, while at the same time, he's a very effective vice president.
Yes.
I'm going to talk out of my other side of my mouth later on in the episode.
Yes.
But for right now, he's giving really great advice about what to do with China, because he's like, oh, no, actually don't think that initially we should resort to military action. We should just basically release a statement that we don't agree. Because basically what he's saying is, like, let's not get involved. Let's see how it plays out before we now take the next step, which was, I think, a sound advice.
Well, it is. And he has interests also, and he knows that, this deal he has going with Xander Fang. To have the military, to take a military position or stance, I believe is premature, but who knows what's going on in China. So they haven't, obviously, the House of Cards is in America. It's not a House of Cards in China. So we don't know what's going on over there politically or whatnot, and why they allude to it, but that's only from the perspective of Americans. So of course there's going to be military reciprocation, made from Japan. And what's funny is, a country will make a military, move towards somebody that America is in line with, but it's like picking on the little brother, because you don't want to pick on the big brother, because the big brother will obviously move in such a way that'll be much bigger ramifications.
But just to carry on that analogy, when that analogy was made, it made sense to me, but then it didn't. Right? Mm-hmm. I'm a big sibling, right?
Right.
You come after me, I'm going to hit you back, right? You come after my little sister, I'm going to demolish you.
Right.
It's worse.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And yes, I know in this analogy, it's not really a sibling relationship, so it's a little bit different.
Right.
But if you want to make that sibling relationship in the same way that, you come after someone in an inner circle, because you think, as a human being, like, I can defend myself.
Right.
Normally, someone under your care or a younger sibling, you view from a different perspective that they're incapable of defending themselves.
Right.
And that's exactly why an aggressor is coming after them.
Well, it's more of like the intimidation of, they haven't picked on them yet. It's more of like a posturing of, it's like someone picking on the little sibling, but they're not picking on them yet. They're walking down they're walking down the hallway, kind of giving them that look, but they haven't really done anything.
Okay, fair
enough.
I
think it's more of an invitation for the big sibling, or in this case, the U.S., to join in or to do something. So, you have people or kids playing in the playground, and they don't want to be the first one to make the move, so they'll throw stuff, or they'll, create a situation where you have to step in.
Right.
So I think China is doing that because they don't want to be the one to create chaos. So they're just, I guess, slightly tiptoeing around the situation.
Well, here's the thing. At the end of the day, they want to make money. They want commerce. They want everything flowing. And if you think about a lot of things that go on with the elite, it has a lot to do with money and money flow and economics, and commerce. So what you don't want to go, the last thing you want to do is have a battle ensue or some kind of military action with something you really want to do, make money with, and have a prosperous commercial relationship with. And that's ultimately what both sides want. What's kind of screwing this whole thing up is this back channeling thing that's been going on with someone who's a big time player on both sides, and that's Tusk and Fang. Fang represents certain powerful, very powerful economic interests on the Chinese side, and then you've got Raymond Tusk on the American side, who you can say represents big business on the American side. And it just goes to show how much big business and economics affect the government on either side and in the world, because the world is run on money and economics. It's like money comes first, and then if the money doesn't come like it's supposed to, then military action is imposed, because it's like, look, we're not receiving all the spoils of the earth that we want to receive or that we feel that we're entitled to. So now military action is imposed, or we're going to actually occupy a region just to make sure that money and quality of life is ensured. And that to me is kind of what they're kind of like leading to, or kind of like they're kind of implying basically with this whole military. And because all this started with the whole Fang Tusk situation and the back channeling and the refinery and the bridge and all that, and now it's trickled into this military imposition, this military posturing. So what is really going on, guys, in government?
Money versus power.
Money versus power.
And Fang wasn't doing it in the interest of the country. He was doing it in his own interest, which could have repercussions from, with China and the U.S., because even though he is a representative of China, in a sense, he's really not playing in the interest of the government. He's playing in the interest of the businessman, of the elite.
Which is why he's been brought up on corruption charges twice.
And I'm going to actually back up. I'd actually say that he's actually not working on behalf of the businessman. He's actually working on behalf of himself, but actually not for financial reasons, for like life and liberty. Like, he's doing this so that he doesn't get brought up on corruption charges and he doesn't go to jail. So he's not making these moves to make money. Exactly, for immunity. He's not making these moves for money. He's making these moves so that he can basically stack the deck so that the people who could send him away, he's done enough favors for so that they won't do that.
Well, forget sending him away. He did mention how he has certain interests that wanted, or certain parties whose interest was
to have his rivals, remember? And we find that out with Aaliyah.
But these interests he made,
like, everything in this show is for a reason. It's either to highlight something that we would either otherwise be unaware of, or it's allowing us to see the dynamic of characters but one step removed so that we can really kind of go in without getting trapped. You know what I mean? Because they keep bringing up war. And in essence,
to now that we're in military posturing with China, and how that is actually endangering, anytime you're talking military action, now there are some rich guys that want to make more money. So that is the whole link. The whole link is you don't know about certain things that are going on, but really he's keeping him in the dark to set him up. That's ultimately the fall. But he's willing to risk house and home in order to excel and move up the ladder. And he's, you got to give him.
Going into that scene, he was in a way so calm about it. And
Halliburton.
It all added up to now possibly people finding out.
How do you have an administration and you have a vice president? Even when Frank said, I will take the fall for this, no way that I'm not going to be looked at. You're going to look at like he's incompetent.
Right.
So
especially
either way,
when his advice.
It's a bad situation for you, Garrett. It's just really bad for him. He didn't even know, had no idea. He just has deep pockets. So, and he kept himself disconnected from the money trail.
But
what do you do?
I think it was a matter of time, and Frank just sped up the process of bringing it out to light.
Well, what Frank wants to do is just connect Tusk and the president's relationship. That's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
If he connects Tusk and the president's relationship, now he can tie the president himself to corruption. They're having business interests that are not in the interests of the American people.
No, I completely agree. As well as I think it distracts the American people, as well as the fact that Frank loves chaos.
Yes.
And literally what he's done is we're on the verge of war, right? And now you have these corruption charges. So you have the President of the United States of America dealing with potentially sending people, quote unquote, to die, literally and figuratively, right? And then you have this corruption charge, which the president is at minimal astute enough to realize that this could not only bring down his presidency, like this is an illegal action.
Right.
And I think that's why the scene with the attorney was so important, because there's a definite difference between something that's illegal versus something that the public will perceive as something that they don't like, right? Because just because you do something that you could basically say it's legal, again, let's go back to Bill Clinton, and like, I did not have sexual relations with that girl.
Right.
It was legal semantics,
right?
Right? He used words like, and trust me, he definitely looked up the meaning of like sexual relations, and what they did not fall into the definition, so we felt very comfortable saying that.
I gotta
normal
look that
human
up.
beings,
Maybe it changes
right? And maybe I'm saying it wrong, but to me, like, that's why he said what he said. Like, he knew that whatever verbiage he was using, what he did not fall under that definition. However, as normal human beings, right, as the public, as the attorney mentions, that's not how we see things. We're like, oh no, but you da-da-da-da-da, and that's sex, so you're bad. You know what I mean? And I think that little dialogue with the president as attorney, to me, I felt like the president was not recognizing the severity of what was going on. Even though he was kind of, upset with Frank, it felt slightly like a tantrum and not like a president stepping up. Because to me, throw him out of your office.
He's always throwing tantrums, though.
Totally, but
with
throw
the
him
whole
out of your
punching
office.
bag thing and everything.
Completely. And it's like also, too, it's like, figure out who you need to talk to. The fact of the matter is, think about it, Catherine Durant isn't his person. Like, think about it. He doesn't have a cabinet of friends.
No.
And now that I really back up and think about it, the only dude you had was Tusk. Oh, no. You had one person, and the person's actually not in your cabinet, and you yourself actually considered him as an advisor. Right. So you actually didn't know how much power he wielded. You don't have people?
Right.
So you have Linda, who you fired. Do you know what I mean?
No, she resigned.
Well, true.
Yeah.
You kind of forced her out. And technically
he fired
Linda
Christina, too.
Right. And technically Linda was Frank's person.
Technically, yeah.
Right? You have Catherine Durant, who's Secretary of State, who he should be like consulting with a lot of these issues, right?
Yes.
I don't know who the foreign affairs person, but again, Walker doesn't seem to have anyone other than Tusk and then Frank.
Well, here's the thing that also is about Walker. He seems to be just a popular president. He was a popular president amongst the people, and he's like, I don't know. He's like what?
Clueless.
Right. He's like tuna in a tank of sharks, and he's getting eaten up, and he doesn't even realize, because every time he says something to Frank, like, I don't have information, you're not telling me, but he doesn't always use those words, but he uses statements like that. He makes statements like that, just that alludes that he's just really in the dark and he doesn't know what's going on. It's not that he's a stupid man. It's he's not shade savvy, I should say. He's not used to dealing with people that are like just corrupt and manipulative.
But even that,
though he should be, because he's a politician.
But I'm going to back it up. Even if he's not used to it, I still feel like, let's take the corruption out of it. I still feel like he's not doing his job, because then get the answers. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Assuming everything is completely on the up and up, right? And I, as the President of the United States of America, was unaware of potential money laundering that has gone on for who knows how long. But more importantly, that I potentially am connected to, because I put into motion the bridge project.
Yes.
That alone, the fact that he hasn't literally gotten a group of people together, literally sworn them, had them sign some little secret, you can't tell anybody, and gone and done research.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Because think about it, that's what Frank would have done.
And as you can see, that's why Frank pushed the bridge, even though when he was ready to back off of it, and Linda was like, no, he's made this decision. It's good that he doesn't deal with it right now. He's not, the problem with this guy is that he has really, really good instincts, and he's been beguiled by Frank and the whole scenario with the relationship with the wife and blah, blah, blah. They've been befriended by somebody he respects because of the moves that Frank has made. And somebody else that was an advisor to him who trusted him actually vouched for Frank, which was Tusk at the time, for him to become vice president. So he has all the instincts there. If you actually watch the scenes, he has instincts, which is why he's always coming at Frank and confronting him about not getting information. He has the instincts, but he's trusting the advisors who have proven right in the past, who are now actually leading him down the road to the guillotine, and unbeknownst to him. So that's the crappy thing about what's going on. It's like they let him up to the light, and he still sees the light when they're actually not leading him down a dark road.
Plus, it's his leadership style that he's not stern with his decisions that hurts him at the end. Because even going back to a couple of episodes ago, when he tells Tusk and Frank, no more back channeling, and when he finds out about it, as a president, knowing people did not follow your orders, especially that it's the vice president or someone you consider your friend and your advisor, you have to be a little bit more stern in your decision making. And even then, that's when he should have been more involved and stepped in.
What should he have done, though? That's a good point you bring up. Go ahead, finish.
He didn't really. He was just like, okay, don't do that anymore. Let's move on. Don't have any connections. Even it comes up over and over again where Frank's like, oh, I don't want to get you involved. Oh, I don't want to tell you. And he doesn't do his own research to find out what's going on. He just lets it play out. Like, how many times can someone come with you with an excuse if you're, let's say an owner or a businessman, and I'm not, I'm comparing it to the presidency, but says, I didn't get my job done. Oh, okay. Just make sure you get it done next time. Oh, I didn't get my job done again. So how many times do you let it go on until you step in, either write up the person, terminate them, something before
HR terms.
It's a good point.
Because it's gonna hurt your company. At the end of the day, you're the reflection, and it's your company that's gonna suffer for one person. So as an owner, you're not doing your due diligence of getting, of having internal control for you to do your own audit, for you to do, your own research to find out before that person comes to you. You should already know what they're going to present to you.
Well, see, I look at it like this. It's like you have two corporations, right? Say you have two companies, and then say the owners of the two companies who want to do a merger, they kind of clash, even though they both know that it would be in their both of their companies' best interests to do business with each other. They personally kind of clash, but they have a right hand, and they each have a right hand who kind of get along. So they kind of use them to nurture the relationship and water the plant to make sure that the business goes like how the merger goes like how it's supposed to. I kind of look at it like that.
But before a merger,
so it's like, okay, I don't want to. It's like, okay, Frank is gonna whatever. Okay, now things aren't going good for us in the public. Back off of it. But now they've already established a rapport and a relationship. So if they think they could still make the merger happen, look, I was trying to do something for the company, trying to make it happen. I was trying to make, so we can still make this happen. You're not necessarily gonna fire that person, because they've already proven to be an asset to the company in a major way.
Where he's wrong is before you even think about doing a merger, you need to have a single audit of each other's companies to make sure you know everything that's on the books. Everything that's booked is actually what it is.
Well, the problem with that is the two representatives of the companies got their own side deal going.
You review the information. You're the one signing the document.
I understand what you're saying.
Not only that, but more importantly, and I think Emma said it, it's like you bring in an outside auditor, right?
Yeah.
So you bring in outside people. The problem is...
So who do you bring in? Durant?
No. Yes, not her, but this is the difference. Is you don't necessarily bring an outside auditor, but in this situation, you have to actually read from the Frank's playbook. You not only bring in someone from the outside, you bring in someone from the outside that's going to sting. So to me, and I don't care who it has to be, you bring in someone that you know that Frank and Tusk are going to be like, wait, excuse me? There has to be another Tusk. There has to be another big business person who has $20, $30 billion, right? Bring him in for a meeting and let Tusk know. Same thing with Frank. Bring in someone, whether or not they're from the House or the Senate or some other political consultant, and literally set up a meeting. Does it make sense? And literally either have Frank there, but tell Frank he's not allowed to talk, and slightly disrespect him in front of this other person. You need to let both of them know, like, I can circumvent you. So you're here at my invitation, not because I have no other choices. Both of them are able to play Garrett because they know he doesn't have another choice, right? And at the moment, they know it's either Tusk or Frank.
Right.
And Frank knows that he can play Tusk, and Tusk knows that he can play Frank.
Right.
Bring in other people.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? That's what you do. Because, you can't fire them in this scenario, right? But you definitely kind of slap them a little bit. So you bring in whether or not it's the new intern, a new recruit, a new whomever, who's going to make them straighten up just a little bit to then, and more importantly, because you want them nervous. He's not even watching how they're playing. He's not even realizing the difference between Garrett and Frank is going back to, you had mentioned the last episode, Doug and Seth, right? When he brings up the fact of, a little sibling rivalry is great between, especially between two adopted boys. It basically either makes them be better versions of themselves or one gets sent back to the orphanage.
Right.
It was cruel,
really
but it was spot on, right?
Right.
That's to me what Garrett isn't doing. Garrett isn't using these people, he's being used. And the reason being is, I think because he's not thinking things through, if that makes sense. Like, I think that even the standpoint that he's like, he felt blindsided by the article, the timing of the article, and, during the press conference, they were like asking him all these questions. He's a little bit too concerned with appearance and not so much about actually running his office or his ship, if that makes sense. Like, he's not thinking ahead. Like, you're just kind of like, oh my God, well, why was I blindsided? Well, what's your next move? What's your next option? Have you mapped it out?
He mentions in this episode where he says that his home relationship is stressing him out more than the issues with China. And it's like, really?
I thought the same thing.
Well, we saw him get sucked in by Claire and Frank.
No,
it doesn't matter.
Though,
he's the president of the United States.
You would rather be dealing with a potential war with China than your wife? I was like, damn. No, that's harsh. You would rather be dealing with issues of war, not a little spat within Congress, not like, oh, my ratings maybe plummeted 4 points.
A woman can do that to a man, you know what I'm saying? It just goes like that sometimes. Sorry.
A weak man.
Sorry, I just got silly. Sorry, I got silly real quick.
Can you repeat that, Emma?
A weak man.
I agree. Garrett's weak. That's why things are not going in his way.
It's like,
They're
look
not
at
going in his
what
favor.
Frank and Claire have to deal with. You know, this whole sexual scandal that's come out in the open and how they're handling it, and you know, all the threats.
To me, that's minor for them, though. That's like.
But no.
that's nothing.
But
I think
he
she's gonna make
doesn't
a really
even
good point.
have a real cause,
Right,
and
right.
he's stressed he's stressed for his relationship.
Right, because think about it. Claire and Frank are always united front, number
Right.
one. But more importantly, to external people, right? It's that whole concept of like, in the family, we keep everything in the family, right? And if there's any squabbles, we deal with it amongst ourselves, but we never bring those squabbles or those troubles to outside individuals. Garrett, even though Garrett, I think, thinks of Frank as part of his inner circle, he's not. Do you know what I mean? So you need to be very aware of who you're telling about problems with your wife. Frank would never, number one. Number two, I think Emma brings up a really good point. Think about it from a posturing standpoint. Here you have Frank, who has literally gone through adultery. Again, how he said people either think she's an adulterer or a baby killer.
Murder.
But they're literally connected, and he basically is always supporting his wife. Versus Garrett, what problems do they have?
I mean, I'm pretty confident.
Christina.
I'm pretty confident Garrett has never thrown anybody in front of a train before or a subway. So that being said, they've actually set the Walkers up like they were America's sweethearts, and they've kind of gone through the ranks, and now they're the first family. And they've never really dealt with any real treachery. They haven't.
I've always wanted to ask this, which I don't think we've seen or they've mentioned. Do they have any kids?
They have to.
They have
and
kids.
The reason they,
No, they have. I think they have 2 kids.
Oh yes, because they
I
talk
think
about it.
they've talked about it. They haven't shown the kids,
Yeah,
Okay,
but
okay.
they've spoken about the kids. Yeah, and they've really, if you look at how they've made her hair, how she dresses, how they handle situations, just kind of who they are as a family or as a couple. They've set them up like, and he even mentioned how Garrett won the popular vote, and you know, I think he mentioned he was on the cover of some magazine that was kind of pop culture-ish. I think that was in the first season. That they set them up like they were just kind of like the cool politicians that got into office because they were cool. They haven't really done anything, or I mean, not done anything. They haven't really faced any real obstacles or any real treacherous type of situations like Frank and Tusk have dealt with real like corrupt, dark people. I don't really feel they've actually. I think they actually probably.
I have to disagree with you. Dealing with Frank and Tusk, that is dealing with
But
people
they
like
don't
that.
know
But
that.
he's
They're
naive.
blind.
He's
But they're
naive
blind.
to
They're
it.
blind.
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah, they're blind to. Yeah, exactly.
Well, so then what do you think? I mean, because I
They've been
like,
placed for them to be used as puppets, so to speak. It's like, okay, let me go ahead and they place money here, people place money there, and they just kind of like, oh my gosh, we're gonna be the president and the first lady, but they don't really realize that they've kind of been maneuvered into that position for other people's use. That's what I feel.
I agree.
And they haven't really been confronted with treachery or confronted with corruption. Even though it's there and it's all around them, they're more like puppets, so to speak. And he's being puppeted right now in this whole situation with Frank. Frank has manipulated his way from majority whip to the VP under his administration. So he's being kept in the dark because he's not savvy when it comes to that. You know, knowing the law, knowing politics. I think, you know, if you have a speechwriter and you look good, you know the law, you know, you can probably win a couple. If you have some support from some backers who are multimillionaires, you could probably win a couple of offices. If you know the law and you know there's a couple of things that you already have under your belt, I think you could probably win a couple of things. And then if somebody else has interest that is powerful enough, can help shuttle you into the White House, maybe.
Was it in this episode where the president takes a nap?
yeah,
in the-
on the sofa.
Did you guys
Right?
think anything of that? Because Frank's mentioned so many times that, you know, he will sleep when he dies. And
Right.
this whole China thing is going on, and he encourages
And what does he
the
say? He
president
goes-
to take a nap.
He goes, what does he say? He says something like, I loathe the necessity of sleep. It's the one act that puts even powerful men on their backs.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's true. I even think about that at times, like, why do you need to sleep? It's so annoying. Like, the need for sleep is like... I love sleep. Yeah, but if you didn't have to...
No, I'm
and
just
you,
being funny.
And you
But-
always had the energy that you always, like, had without having to sleep, that would be great.
But I mean, I think also too, to me, the reason that scene was important, because it's funny that you brought it up, because I was actually about to bring it up, is I think that Frank doesn't like humanity. right? Like, think about it. Claire and Frank are superhuman. Like, even what you're talking about. Do you know what I mean? Like, Claire and Frank can go through anything. They're going to weather the storm. They're going to lie. They're going to cheat. They're going to murder. They're going to do whatever they need to do.
Yeah, Frank prays to himself for himself.
Exactly.
So he likens himself to a god.
Completely. And gods don't need to sleep.
Exactly.
And so it's also that he abhors people who have to give into their humanity. Right? So it's almost like, Garrett's getting rings around his eyes. He has to sleep. And even though it's like, dude, like, of course he needs to sleep. Like, he's dealing with, like serious crap going on, and it's like you don't want an insomniac president, because technically that's worse than what's going to come out that people think is bad about the president. But Frank is like, oh, the fact that he has to sleep makes me like him even less.
Right.
Yeah. There's a certain lack of humanity
with
that
what's
Frank
going,
has.
especially with what's going on right now, the circumstances that are involved. Yeah. So let's.
But let us know what you think on iTunes.
Yes.
Part of what we love about AfterBuzz TV is that we are super fans, just like you are super fans. And so, how you can show your love and support for what we do here is you can go to iTunes.com, and you just go to iTunes.com, AfterBuzz TV, House of Cards, and all of our podcasts will come up. And you can rate, comment, and subscribe. 5 stars if you like us. But definitely comment. Let us know what you think about what we're talking about. Bring up topics regarding the episode or other chapters that we haven't. It helps us lead the discussion and really talk about what you want to talk about. So again, rate, comment, subscribe, tell a friend. And if you like us, 5 stars. iTunes, AfterBuzz TV, House of Cards.
Yes. So moving forward, let's talk about Claire and this bomb scare that she had. She had some crazy guy in the hood. I don't know how. He must have been delusional, but I guess the guy, maybe he has PTSD or something. He was a Marine, and he's really distraught over the fact that his wife had an abortion?
His girlfriend or something.
His girlfriend or his wife had an abortion. I guess he kind of blames Claire for that, since she, I don't want to say endorses, but she didn't endorse abortion. What she did was she kind of justified the reason why she had one herself, and he probably feels like that contributed to his girlfriend or wife feeling okay with having hers.
There's a part of the and let me know what you guys think in the Twitterverse or on iTunes or YouTube, because I'm actually confused, because they also said that he admitted to sending the powder to the Capitol.
Right.
And part of me is like, the timing seems a little off, because that was obviously before his girlfriend had an abortion, and then she had an abortion. So you already hated Claire from before. I don't know. Something doesn't make sense to me. Like, did you happen to hate Claire before?
I remember that, and it didn't make sense to me. I was like, okay, I was like,
yeah, we don't really need to talk about it, but if you guys know out there, if you can connect the dots for me.
I kind of feel like it wasn't intended for Claire, but that's the story they're playing, because she's just the one that's out in the media and open right now, and Frank would be they would leave too many footprints. And I don't know why, but I feel like this guy is somehow tied and connected and helping the hacker.
It's so funny that you said that. Sorry,
and
the door. Oh my God, it's so funny that you said that.
The one that sent him. And it was intended for Frank, not Claire.
Okay, the reason that I'm so like, oh my gosh.
Interesting.
I actually didn't think that. But there was a moment when he basically, comes through the fence, and then he goes in the doorway and he peeks out. I actually thought it was the hacker. That's why I'm kind of like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Really?
I thought it was hacker. Literally from the corner of his eye. I was like, oh my gosh, it's the hacker. Once I realized it wasn't, I actually do not agree with the theory that the hacker sent him. Who knows? Right. But I did think it was the hacker, because to me, that was the only person who was kind of out there that we basically still don't know what his intent is to them like that, because part of me was like, oh, this security is like, this is whack. Like, even if it's just a beep. Anyone coming through that fence, there should literally be a camera, right? There should be a motion detector light. And this is even just like if this was your normal home in your normal neighborhood, right? And a little buzzer should go off, at least inside, that we know someone came through the fence.
And, I think he really believes Lucas's story, even though he had to used by whoever is, Carter, who he was treated, with his pet, and how they treated the whole story. I think he's going
acting than I do, but and the way that kind of they develop characters. To me, like a hacking, we've realized that it's Stamper's phone. Do you know what I mean? Yes, he makes a phone call, but it's still very and that's the only reason I disagree. Again, did I think that
it's more disconnected?
But he sent Lucas to do the work, so it's not that
was all a setup, though.
I know, but who knows?
To get Lucas to take the fall for for Zoe and
Yes,
to discredit
but
him with this whole.
out right now. So, take that. I don't, and neither do my friends.
Well, that's because based on what they do as hackers, and they're already like in this cyber war thing.
Oh.
Yeah, we will. For me, I've become disconnected from the developed, the characters. I'm not tied to that.
And
I'm not interested in watching
the nice
it. It's
apartment
nothing.
he stays in.
Yeah, it just all seemed a little. Well, I was gonna say a network. I shouldn't say it. Well, for me, no, I can't do that. It was gonna say, ish for me. It just I wasn't very. To me, felt like I was watching a whole nother show. Whenever I watch one of those scenes, it just wasn't House of Cards of the hacker story characters. It was a little too much. Everything else was a little more real. That was just a little too. I don't know, a little too cartoonish for me.
No, I agree, but it's funny though. But going back to the bomb scare and Claire, and I think the interaction that seems very real and more real as the episode progresses is Meacham. When Meacham comes basically to tell her that they're, he's like, oh, wake up, we need to go down, to the safe room.
Right.
And the way that he, opens a door and then immediately looks down, like I literally, I take notes when I watch before this show.
Yeah, he did.
I literally wrote question mark. I go, embarrassed or respectful? Like I couldn't decide, did he look down as a sign of respect? Because obviously she's a woman.
That's how I took it.
Or also embarrassed.
Right.
Because literally, okay, so whether or not you're a little kid or whatever, and you see something you see people kissing, right? And you get that little weird feeling inside you.
Right.
And so you get embarrassed. So you look away.
But
right? Was it because he had that little feeling?
But didn't it take him a little while to speak? He was just admiring her while she was sleeping, and then he spoke out, and then he looked down.
I didn't notice that either.
I need to watch it again.
But maybe so. I'd have to see that again. But he did come in there, and when she woke up, he was kind of talking to her, and then he put his head down, as a sign of respect. It was like he was admiring her when he was looking at her, but then he kind of looked away and down out of respect. Like, she's in bed. This is, even though they work there, that's their workplace. That's her home, and she's sleeping in her bed. She could have had a nightie on or anything. So that's how I took it.
Okay.
I love how when he went to go interrupt Frank, when Frank comes home, Frank gets interrupted from the meeting with the Japanese Prime Minister, goes home, checks on everything, blah, blah, blah. Then they have a little, Frank has a little downtime. He's looking at some stuff on his laptop. And then Meacham comes and interrupts him. He was like, he needs a little release. So he throws on his headphones, which I got to find out what headphones were because they looked wireless. And I don't know if you can connect to. I didn't see a wire. Oh. So I looked, after I watched that scene a couple of times, I was like, what headphones are those that don't have a wire? I need to get those. Same ones.
Bluetooth headphones.
Right? So he had put his headphones on and he's watching a scene. And Meacham comes in. And he says, I want to request to be put on your wife's or Claire's detail full time, if it's okay with you. He said, have you talked to Claire about it? He's like, yeah, I spoke with her about it. It's okay, cool, blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry if I interrupted you. And then Frank is like, you're not interrupting anything. I'm like, wait,
and
what?
He didn't even close the laptop.
He didn't close the laptop.
He just paused it.
He paused it, just looked up at him and said, you are not interrupting anything, and just looked at him. It was just like...
And then he was like, oh, have you talked to Claire about this? And he was like, yeah. He's like, okay, cool. I think it's a good idea.
Right.
Should we carry that topic over to the next episode?
No.
No. We'll talk about it next episode.
I knew you were going to do that.
No. I mean, should we end this and then move over to the next episode?
Yeah, she's like, we'll stop this and we'll talk about it next episode. Yeah, I get what she means.
Yes.
Yeah, I get what she means.
We shall. Sorry,
I'll make a note.
And then we could bring in
Jackie
bring in the whole
and we'll bring on the whole concept with Adam, the conversation about Adam. Yeah,
right.
No, Emma. Great point.
Most definitely. And really quickly, let's just...
Aaliyah? No, go ahead. What were you going to bring up?
I wanted
Isla?
Oh, is that her name?
Isla Sayad. Frank actually releases the Hounds of Hell, so I'm going to refer to them from now on. Seth and Stamper, since they work together, I'm going to call them the Hounds of Hell. He's released the Hounds of Hell to go trigger Sayad, the reporter, to do a little investigation and to look into Raymond Tusk and his involvement with the money laundering and whatnot. They send her a little treat for her,
card.
a little play card written in Chinese. It says,
follow the money.
Follow the money. Well, she interpreted as follow. The actual interpretation was chase money or something like that. But she figured it out. She's like, follow the money. Okay, blah, blah, blah. So now she's on this witch hunt to find out what's going on. She gets the paper higher-ups involved. Is this where she...
When she calls, basically has the conversation with the editor?
Yes.
I think it was... The funny thing is, actually, it gets the boss interested. Yes,
Does she get Lanigan on the phone this episode?
It is. She calls Lanigan,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
And
I didn't
Tusk
want to
is,
spell,
yes.
Okay. So she speaks with Lanigan, and Tusk is actually in the office, which was so funny.
Actually, Lanigan was in Tusk's office, right? Did you?
No, because Tusk was behind Lanigan was behind the desk. And
Yeah.
he actually hung up Lanigan's phone.
Yeah.
They're
in Lanigan's office.
Yeah, they're in Lanigan's office.
Okay.
And Lanigan, basically, Tusk was coaching him through the conversation because she was asking real stuff, real questions that if he probably would have screwed up if Tusk happened to not be there.
And I love the image they're bringing for the reporters compared to Zoe and the rest of the reporters that we've seen. Is
Now I
that
feel like I'm dealing with real reporters.
Yes, and even when she's
Sorry,
at
Zoe.
the scandal of what's going on, she's like, I'm done with this. I'm leaving. I'm going to go handle,
Yeah.
big stories that I need to be
She's
dealing
like, this
with.
is tabloid trash or something like
Yeah.
that.
And she knows, where to look for and what's going to be a big
'cause I think
story.
also too, and this is the big difference, and I love how they shot this. Basically, what they were showing is it's her job to dig and to ask questions and to present information, not to make a conclusion. What Zoe was doing was making a conclusion. That's not what technically a reporter's job is. A reporter's job is to present and ask questions so that there's dialogue. Basically, what they're meant, they're the catalyst for public dialogue and or discourse. They're not actually supposed to tell you what to think. They're supposed to literally ignite the wheels in your head to start asking questions.
Well, the difference between Zoe and is it Alia? Is that how you say her name?
No, I think we're saying it wrong.
Oh,
Anyway, the difference between Zoe and
Alia.
Zoe and this new reporter is, as obviously this new reporter is not sleeping with anybody, and she's not in bed, and I don't mean that literally. I mean figuratively.
And
Zoe, even before Zoe started sleeping with Frank, she was in bed and she was a pawn being used.
I think the difference is because Zoe was junior. Zoe
Yes.
was a little baby reporter.
Right.
Zayad is obviously an experienced reporter. Again, where she works at the Wall Street Telegraph.
Right.
She's obviously extremely high up. She's on the White House detail or part of the White House press corps.
She's calling people saying, "Book me a flight to here. Book me a flight."
Right.
She's got
do you know what I mean?
juice.
So yeah. So at the end of the day, in terms of hierarchy, they're literally like level 1 and level 10. So
Right.
regardless of whether or not Zoe was sleeping with anyone, she wasn't necessarily equipped to be an actual full-fledged reporter yet.
and her history when she's in Tusk's office and they're talking about what country was she in that she left?
Tehran.
And
Yeah.
it was it got a little bit too much for her to handle, but she's been in that chaos.
Actually,
and
I think it got
if
too
you've
much for
been in
Tusk to handle. That's why he had to deal out the
totally.
to deal
Yeah.
out the
Did you
threat.
notice that? No, go with that because he was
shook.
intimidated.
He was shook.
Oh yeah.
He was dealing with the real reporter who had real leads, and she was not intimidated by him. Which is why when she called Lanigan this episode, she was like, "If somebody with $40 billion doesn't intimidate me, Mr. Lanigan, you certainly click."
Exactly.
Hung up.
No, but I'm just saying she has real reporting experience, and the Middle East is not a joke for you to be
we
working
totally
there.
agree.
So she definitely has dealt with experiences that is far more scary than Tusk and him threatening her.
Right. She even said you can make your threats without masking them.
Yeah, but
through
then he also
something.
said, he goes, America can be a lot scarier than Iran.
Tehran.
No. Oh, my bad. I thought he said Iran.
He
my
said
bad.
He said Tehran. But
Okay.
yeah. But
Isn't
Tehran it can-
Iran?
yeah, but he did say Tehran though.
Okay.
I did write that down too.
Okay.
But yeah, and it can be a lot scarier than Tehran in certain
Yes.
parts, depending who you are and what's going on. Did you want to say something, Emma? Go ahead.
No.
Yeah, nothing else you want to say?
Nope.
Okay.
Next.
So where can we find you guys until next time?
You guys can find me on GQJedi.com, Instagram, and Twitter at RealMcKay.
You can find me on Twitter at Sophia Stanley.
And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Club Thaddeus and GQJedi.com. Until next time, after buzzers.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.